Imagine a crime scene marked by a chilling silence, with the only clue being DNA subtly encircling a victim's neck, hinting at the dire incident that unfolded. Whose DNA is it? Who comes to mind? Is it the owner of the DNA? Or perhaps someone else? Today, our journey takes us from the glamorous streets of Hollywood to the tranquil fields of rural Idaho, where we'll challenge your assumptions and provoke deep questions about the reliability of touch and transferred DNA evidence. Is DNA truly the infallible witness it's believed to be? Amid the dazzling lights of Hollywood, where dreams are made and sometimes shattered, lies a true crime tale that cuts deeply into the facade of the film capital. Juliana Redding, a young model and aspiring actress, became the centerpiece of a grim Hollywood mystery, her life cut tragically short. This tale parallels the perplexing Idaho 4 case, where DNA evidence once again played a central and contentious role. In both cases, DNA evidence became a crucial piece in the legal puzzle, challenging our perceptions of justice and pushing us to question the truths we often take for granted. Join us as we unravel these two riveting cases that explore the complexities of forensic science. These stories might fundamentally reshape your understanding of how DNA evidence is used in legal proceedings. Fueled by dreams of stardom, Juliana Redding moved to Los Angeles from Arizona in 2005, her aspirations shining as brightly as the city lights. Balancing her career ambitions with her studies as a full-time college student at Santa Monica College, Juliana's radiant smile and undeniable talent did not go unnoticed. Her feature in Maxim magazine's Hometown Hotties not only spotlighted her potential but also seemed to herald the dawn of a promising career. Yet, beneath the glamorous exterior of Hollywood, the cutthroat realities loomed, offering a stark reminder of the industry's harsh demands on rising stars like Juliana. The date was March 15, 2008. A day that began like any other in the breezy city of Santa Monica. Juliana's last hours were filled with an appearance of normalcy, colored by laughter and casual chats with friends. These moments, seemingly mundane at the time, now echo with chilling poignancy against the backdrop of the silence that would soon engulf her existence. The stark contrast between the vibrant life she lived and the quiet that followed her disappearance marks a haunting prelude to the tragedy that was about to unfold. As silence began to cloak the routine vibrancy of Juliana's life, worry turned into alarm. Concerned friends and family, met with unanswered calls, prompted a desperate welfare check on March 16. What they discovered was a scene of unspeakable horror. Juliana's life had been brutally snuffed out in her own apartment. The place that once echoed with the dreams of a bright future now lay silent, its corners shadowed by the harsh reality of a vibrant life stolen too soon. The initial focus of the investigation was Juliana's boyfriend, JG, known for his tumultuous relationship with Juliana and a history of past issues. They had argued just the day before her tragic incident, adding to the suspicions. However, he had an alibi supported by surveillance footage, placing him miles away at the time of the incident. The investigation took a crucial turn when a neighbor reported hearing screams shortly before 10 p.m., around the time communication with Juliana ceased. 3 months of meticulous forensic analysis revealed a critical clue. All DNA found at the crime scene belonged to a woman, not matching any known contacts in Juliana's life. This discovery shifted the investigation towards other connections. Attention then turned to the complex web of relationships surrounding Dr. Munir Ueda, Juliana's former lover known for his luxurious lifestyle and shady business dealings. Although their romance had ended amid growing fears and hidden truths, the ties that bound them were not so easily severed. The breakup was closely followed by a failed business deal involving Juliana's father, a deal fraught with betrayal and financial stakes. These unraveling threads hinted at deeper motives intertwined with financial and emotional betrayals. With Dr. Ueda out of the country at the time of the crime, investigators expanded their focus within his circle, considering his possible indirect involvement. This line of inquiry would soon lead them to a critical figure, an enforcer within Ueda's orbit, opening new avenues in a case that was far from straightforward. Investigators turned their focus to the female associates of Dr. Ueda. A critical breakthrough in the case came with the forensic analysis of DNA samples collected from the crime scene. DNA found on Juliana's neck and throughout her apartment pointed irrefutably to an unexpected figure, Kaylee Sue Park. The DNA matched Park's genetic profile, indicating her involvement in a violent confrontation at Juliana's apartment. Known primarily as Dr. Ueda's associate, Park was often described by insiders as his enforcer, a role that cast a dark shadow over her sudden emergence in the investigation. The prosecution crafted a compelling narrative, suggesting that Dr. Ueda, using his considerable resources and influence, may have orchestrated the confrontation. According to this theory, he directed Park to intimidate Juliana as part of his efforts to influence her father's decision regarding their disintegrated business dealings. This scenario portrayed Park not just as a participant, but as a key figure in carrying out Ueda's more coercive tactics, intertwining personal vendettas with business fallout in the grim mosaic of Juliana Redding's untimely demise. Despite the strong evidence eventually gathered, Kaylee Sue Park was not arrested until June 2010, 2 years after Juliana's tragic end. But what is touch-transferred DNA? And why has it become such a crucial piece of evidence in modern forensic science? Touch or transferred DNA consists of skin cells left behind when someone contacts an object or another person. Interestingly, DNA can also be deposited through sweat, even if no visible skin cells are present. This makes touch DNA both elusive and potentially more common than people realize, as it can linger on surfaces that a person has briefly touched. Unlike more visible traces like blood or saliva, touch DNA is invisible to the naked eye, rendering it both a powerful yet elusive tool for forensic investigators. Transferred DNA, as the term suggests, can be moved from one surface to another through casual contact, complicating the interpretation of its origins. These professionals engage in meticulous sample collection from a variety of surfaces, clothing, skin, and even less expected places, using detailed swabbing and rigorous analysis aimed at uncovering the subtle genetic imprints left behind. In Juliana Redding's case, this methodical approach revealed a silent narrative written in DNA across her apartment, providing chilling evidence of the night's events. Yet, the utility of touch DNA comes with significant complexities. Its propensity for easy transfer, sometimes through mere casual contact, poses a substantial challenge in distinguishing innocent presence from criminal involvement. This ambiguity introduces a critical layer of complexity to forensic analysis, transforming the interpretation of such evidence into a nuanced blend of scientific precision and interpretive skill. Thus, while touch DNA can point to potential suspects, it also demands careful and knowledgeable interpretation to ensure justice is accurately served. Finally commencing almost 5 years after her demise, in May 2013, the trial began with the prosecution weaving a narrative of a desperate struggle for life. Juliana Redding's own DNA was found under her fingernails, silently testifying to her fierce battle during her final moments. As the case unfolded, the prosecution laid out a trail of DNA evidence scattered throughout Juliana's apartment, on the door lock, a stove knob, a plate, and notably, on Juliana's phone with an unfinished 911 call. This same DNA appeared on both the front and back of Juliana's tank top and, most critically, on her throat. Adding to the complexity, the discovery of DNA on a stove knob tied to a harrowing attempt to obliterate the crime scene. Upon entering Juliana's bungalow, first responders encountered the smell of natural gas and a lit candle, suggesting a failed attempt to cause an explosion. This dangerous setting hinted at an intention not just to destroy the evidence but to obliterate any trace of the crime. Despite no known direct connection between Kaylee Sue Park and Juliana, the pervasive presence of Park's DNA throughout the apartment initially left little room for doubt about her involvement. Despite the seemingly damning placement of the DNA evidence, There was no established connection between Juliana Redding and Kaylee Sue Park. According to the prosecution, their only link was through Dr. Munir Uwaida, a controversial figure shrouded in layers of mystery. The prosecution posited that Dr. Uwaida had indirectly orchestrated the crime, using Park as his instrument. However, this central theory encountered a significant hurdle. The judge decided to limit the evidence that could directly associate Dr. Uwaida with the crime during the trial. This restriction posed a substantial challenge to the prosecution, as they were compelled to build their case without directly linking Uwaida to the orchestration of the crime, relying heavily on the circumstantial evidence available. The relationship between Juliana and Dr. Uwaida extended beyond the personal to involve intricate business dealings. After their romantic involvement ended, about 5 months prior to the tragic incident, tensions remained due to Uwaida's professional ties with Juliana's father, Greg Redding. Through his connection with Juliana, he became involved in high-stakes business negotiations with Uwaida. These negotiations promised substantial financial rewards, drawing him into Uwaida's expansive business ventures that spanned from real estate to pharmaceuticals. However, as details about Uwaida's murky background and questionable legal standing emerged, including a failed lawsuit and ongoing investigation, Mr. Redding grew increasingly wary of their business arrangement. His decision to pull out of the deal came just days before the tragic incident, a timing that prosecutors argued was far from coincidental. The prosecution portrayed Dr. Uwaida as a manipulator, allegedly using Kaylee Sue Park, dubbed his James Bond, to enforce his business terms through intimidation. This pattern of using threats to control his business dealings was argued to have escalated in this case, with Park sent to confront Juliana in what may have started as coercion but tragically spiraled into a deadly altercation. This chilling scenario was complicated during the trial by judicial limitations on the evidence that could directly connect Dr. Uwaida to the orchestration of the crime. The prosecution was thus challenged to weave a narrative that could convincingly link Park to the tragic incident without the full context of Uwaida's alleged masterminding role, a task that proved to be as daunting as it was critical. As the trial unfolded, the courtroom drama intensified, culminating in a defense narrative that seemed ripped from the pages of a crime thriller. In a bold move during their closing arguments, the defense proposed an alternative scenario. A mysterious third party meticulously cleaned the crime scene, inadvertently transferring Kaylee Sue Park's DNA onto Juliana. This hypothesis suggested that everyday items, like a towel or objects Park might have used months earlier during a visit to Dr. Uwaida's home, retained her DNA. These items, following Juliana's move from Uwaida's Beverly Hills residence, somehow ended up in her new apartment. The defense contended that these items, carrying latent traces of Park's DNA, were manipulated by an unknown assailant during the crime. This assailant, they argued, might have used the items to wipe down the scene, accidentally framing Park by leaving her DNA in critical locations. This theory painted a picture of an elaborate setup, exploiting coincidental DNA transfer to obscure the true perpetrator's identity. This audacious defense narrative, coupled with arguments about Park's lack of motive and the physical comparison to the victim, dramatically shifted the jury's perspective. The defense introduced a layer of doubt thick enough to challenge the seemingly straightforward evidence presented by the prosecution. By casting Park as a victim of circumstance rather than a perpetrator, the defense opened up the possibility of her incidental involvement, leading to her ultimate acquittal.
The jury in the above entitled action find the defendant, Kaylee Sue Park, not guilty.
The jury's decision was startling, a not guilty verdict, influenced heavily by the defense's crafty narrative. This outcome was precipitated by a theory of coincidental DNA transfer, which posited an exceedingly unlikely chain of events that led to Kaylee Sue Park's DNA being found at the crime scene without her physical presence during the crime. Despite the prosecution's efforts to anchor their case in the DNA evidence linking Park to the crime, the jurors could not overlook the substantial doubts introduced by the defense. Kaylee Sue Park's acquittal left behind a wake of unresolved questions that continued to haunt the case. At the center of the ongoing controversy was Dr. Uwaida, a figure enshrouded in suspicion but never formally charged in connection with Juliana's case. His relocation to Lebanon allowed him to evade any potential legal consequences, casting a shadow of manipulation and evasion over the entire case. This flight not only deepened the unresolved aspects of Juliana's case, but also underscored the difficulties of achieving justice in a case clouded by international complexities and high-level maneuvers. This verdict not only illustrates the unpredictable power of narrative in the courtroom, but also serves as a testament to the complexity of forensic evidence interpretation. It highlights how a well-constructed narrative can sometimes eclipse robust forensic evidence, swaying the scales of justice based on the persuasiveness of the story presented. The jury's decision in this case reflects the deep challenges in bridging the gap between scientific evidence and its interpretation by laypersons, emphasizing the crucial role of clarity in presenting forensic findings. Park's acquittal, while bringing a legal resolution to her charges, left a gaping wound in the narrative that had been constructed around Juliana's tragic demise. The once clear connections between the involved parties frayed under the pressures of legal and moral ambiguities, prompting deep reflections on the nature of justice. How could a case, seemingly straightforward in its presentation of evidence and motives, unravel so dramatically into the shadows of doubt and legal technicalities? As the community and those close to Juliana grappled with the verdict, the broader implications of the case resonated far beyond the courtroom, stirring discussions about the efficacy of the judicial system and the elusive pursuit of truth in complex criminal cases. Juliana Redding's story remains a heartfelt testament to the challenges faced in balancing the scales of justice, where definitive answers often remain just out of reach, obscured by the intricate dance of legal strategy and human fallibility. The selection of jurors represents a critical phase in the judicial process, especially in high-profile cases like those of Juliana Redding and the Idaho 4. Where public perception and preconceived notions can deeply influence outcomes. In Juliana's trial, the defense team meticulously employed jury consulting strategies to build a panel they believed would be receptive to complex defense arguments. They specifically targeted potential jurors who demonstrated a preference for legal dramas like The Good Wife, aiming to find individuals who understand that the appearance of guilt does not necessarily equate to actual guilt and who appreciate the importance of a robust defense, regardless of personal feelings towards the accused. For the Idaho 4 case, the challenge now moves into the courtroom's jury selection process. With the venue now set in Ada County, the defense team, using insights from their preliminary jury pool survey, would engage in voir dire, the questioning of potential jurors. A trial consultant might recommend nuanced questions to further uncover biases, such as, how do you feel about the reliability of forensic evidence? Can you think of any situation where someone might appear guilty but isn't? Or, given that evidence can sometimes be misinterpreted or mishandled, how would you approach evaluating expert testimonies about forensic evidence to decide on their reliability? These questions are designed to assess potential jurors' capacity for critical thinking and their susceptibility to bias, especially regarding forensic evidence, crucial for a case heavily reliant on such details. Imagine you are a trial consultant for the defense team. What kind of questions would you recommend to ensure a fair and impartial jury? Reflecting on this might reveal how deeply our own perceptions are influenced by the media we consume, and our personal experiences with the justice system. The use of jury consultants, popularized in media but less known in everyday legal practice, has become a critical tool for both defense and prosecution teams. These professionals employ psychological insights and demographic analysis to suggest the ideal juror profiles for specific cases. This strategy reflects the nuanced interplay of psychology, media influence, and legal tactics, highlighting how the battle for justice often begins far from the courtroom's public gallery, in the quiet, strategic deliberations over who will ultimately decide the verdict. The saga of Juliana Redding's tragic case reveals a dark web of love, betrayal, and intricate power dynamics. Dr. Uwaita's shadow looms large, reminding us of how the affluent and influential can maneuver through the murky waters of legality and morality. Reflecting on the unresolved aspects of Juliana's story, we are compelled to reconsider our perceptions of truth and influence. This case also brings to light the double-edged sword of forensic advancements. While these technologies push the boundaries of scientific inquiry, they also challenge the very fabric of our legal systems, often raising as many questions as they resolve. In Kelly Sue Park's trial, DNA evidence was found intertwined throughout the crime scene, yet it did not lead to her conviction. In stark contrast, a trace amount of DNA found solely on a knife sheath became a key element in Bryan Kohberger's investigation and the legal narrative. These contrasting scenarios highlight the delicate balance between scientific insights and judicial interpretations. They underscore the complex interplay between the clear revelations of science and the nuanced, sometimes subjective, interpretations of justice. This juxtaposition challenges us to consider not only what forensic science can reveal, but also how these revelations are contextualized and understood within our legal frameworks. As we navigate these compelling narratives, we invite you, the seekers of truth, to explore the complexities of DNA evidence and its role in our justice system. Our journey goes beyond merely solving puzzles. It challenges us to engage with the nuances of human error, interpretation, and the thresholds of doubt that shape our legal processes. How do we reconcile the formidable power of genetic evidence with the realities of its application in courtrooms? In cases like Juliana's, where subtle traces of evidence whisper secrets of dark events, how do we transform those whispers into a chorus of clarity and conviction? The Juliana Redding trial and the Idaho 4 investigation illustrate how DNA evidence can be both a cornerstone and a point of contention in legal proceedings. During Juliana's trial, the DNA found on her neck became a central focus, with the defense questioning its direct connection to the crime due to possible secondary DNA transfer, perhaps as innocuous as through shared items like towels. Conversely, the Idaho 4 case saw a trace amount of DNA playing a crucial role in linking suspect Bryan Kohberger to the crime scene, and bolstering a preliminary narrative of direct involvement during the pre-trial stages. This contrast underscores the differing impacts of DNA evidence depending on the context and the legal arguments presented. What do these differences reveal about the intersection of science and justice? How can we ensure that forensic advancements are applied fairly and accurately in legal proceedings? As we begin our examination of the DNA evidence in the Idaho 4 case, consider how these questions might shape our understanding of forensic evidence and its role in the pursuit of justice. In the Idaho 4 case, a key piece of forensic evidence has emerged into the spotlight: DNA linked to Bryan Kohberger, found on the button snap of the knife sheath at the crime scene. This DNA has become pivotal in the prosecution's efforts to link Kohberger to the scene and shape the ongoing legal discourse. Yet, this evidence raises significant questions about when and how it was deposited. Intriguingly, there is no DNA directly linking Kohberger to the victims or other critical areas of the crime scene, suggesting that if he was involved, extensive measures might have been taken to avoid leaving genetic traces. If so, it could be assumed that the DNA was deposited before entering the crime scene area. The presence of DNA on the knife sheath might also open up the possibility that it could have been transferred there prior to the crime through mundane interactions, such as sharing common objects. This scenario challenges us to critically assess the nature of DNA and its capacity to definitively link individuals to specific criminal acts. The act of leaving DNA traces through everyday interactions, such as handling a mobile phone or sitting at a table, might seem inevitable. Yet, the converse, erasing these genetic footprints, presents a formidable challenge. Erasing touch DNA from surfaces like mobile phones or tables generally requires more than just a simple wipe. Effective removal might necessitate the use of detergents, sanitizers, or other cleaning agents that can break down the DNA. Moreover, the material and texture of the object play a significant role. Porous materials like wood or fabric can trap DNA deeper within their structure, making it harder to remove compared to non-porous surfaces like plastic or metal. This raises questions about the feasibility of completely sanitizing a crime scene discreetly. Imagine you are shopping for a hat. You try on several hats. And eventually you buy one. The hat you purchase might contain DNA from strangers who tried it on before you. Conversely, a hat that you tried on and left behind might carry your DNA, later bought by someone else. This everyday scenario illustrates how easily DNA can transfer from person to object to another person. Bleach is often used to clean visible biological evidence like blood, but it leaves behind detectable residues that forensic teams can identify, complicating its use for completely erasing traces without a trace. In Bryan Kohberger's case, the absence of victim's DNA in his car, apartment, or on personal belongings poses puzzling questions. If he were the perpetrator, what methods could he have possibly used to ensure that no trace of his DNA remained at the crime scene, except on the knife sheath, and that no forensic evidence from the victims was found in his possession? Cleaning a vehicle or a dwelling to remove every last bit of DNA, without employing standard cleaning products that leave behind detectable traces, implies a sophisticated level of planning and precision, potentially involving techniques or materials not typically known to the public or standard in crime scene cleanups. This lack of expected forensic evidence is as baffling as it is revealing, compelling us to confront the dual challenges faced by forensic science: detecting genetic material that ties individuals to a crime, and proving a deliberate absence orchestrated by someone knowledgeable enough in forensic methods to evade leaving any traces. Additionally, it might raise the possibility that detected DNA might have been transferred innocently, without any direct connection to the crime or the victims. For example, Bryan Kohberger's DNA on the knife sheath might have been transferred through casual contact or cleaning processes, implying that his DNA presence does not necessarily indicate direct involvement. This highlights that DNA evidence, while significant, should be considered alongside other factors and not automatically assumed to be definitive proof of guilt. DNA on the knife sheath originally served as a key factor, however, as the case unfolds, the significance of this DNA evidence has become increasingly contested. The defense has vigorously questioned the reliability of this evidence. They argue that the presence of DNA on the knife sheath does not definitively indicate Kohberger's direct involvement. Instead, they suggest that it could have been placed there intentionally or inadvertently contaminated during handling by law enforcement. This perspective challenges the straightforward interpretation of DNA findings, and calls into question the methodologies used for its collection and analysis. These debates emphasize potential gaps or contamination in the evidence's chain of custody. By questioning the integrity of the DNA evidence, the defense aims to undermine its role in proving guilt. Furthermore, the defense suggests that the DNA might have been transferred through improper handling by law enforcement or forensic analysts, raising significant concerns about the procedural integrity in this case. The defense's arguments raise significant questions about the procedures followed by law enforcement and forensic teams. If the evidence handling and collection protocols were not meticulously followed, the risk of contamination increases, further undermining the prosecution's case. Forensic technology, particularly DNA analysis, has undoubtedly transformed the landscape of criminal justice, offering clarity in cases shrouded in complexity. However, this scientific advancement brings with it a host of new challenges. Courts now face the daunting task of navigating the scientific intricacies of DNA evidence, including potential contamination and nuanced interpretations of genetic data. The concerns raised by Bryan Kohberger's defense team go beyond the mere presence of DNA on evidence, examining critical issues of potential mishandling or even intentional tampering, deeply resonant issues within forensic debates. The integrity of forensic evidence is paramount, requiring precise handling from the crime scene to the courtroom. The nature of DNA evidence, which varies in stability depending on the materials it contacts, necessitates stringent measures for its collection, preservation, and presentation. Additionally, contamination risks and degradation can compromise DNA's reliability, highlighting the need for meticulous practices to ensure the evidence remains uncontaminated and reliable. Have you ever wondered how forensic DNA analysis works? Forensic DNA analysis is an incredibly precise science, enabling the amplification and examination of even trace amounts of genetic material. This is achieved through a technique known as polymerase chain reaction, PCR, which allows forensic scientists to create enough DNA from tiny samples for detailed analysis. Despite its precision, forensic DNA analysis faces challenges, particularly when dealing with degraded or minimal samples. The DNA analysis process, often referred to as STR analysis, involves several key steps: DNA extraction to purify the sample, quantitation to measure the DNA amount, amplification through PCR, and detection to create a DNA profile. This profile can then be compared to known profiles from databases or collected samples to match evidence to individuals related to the case. The human genome is remarkably similar across individuals, with about 99.9% of DNA being identical. It is the remaining 0.1% that provides the variability necessary for distinguishing one person from another. Although mutations, errors that occur during DNA replication, are rare, they can sometimes result in one base being changed to another. However, these mutations typically affect only a small portion of the DNA and do not significantly impact the overall accuracy of DNA profiling. Forensic analysts focus on specific regions of the DNA that are highly variable between individuals but stable enough to not change frequently. When dealing with trace DNA, the quantity and quality of the sample significantly influence the accuracy of the results. Degraded DNA, which is often found in older or compromised samples, can complicate the analysis but does not render it impossible. Forensic analysts examine multiple regions of the genome to ensure accuracy, even with degraded or minimal DNA. The success of DNA profiling from older evidence depends on factors like the initial amount of DNA, the condition of the sample when it was collected, and how well it was preserved. Properly stored evidence, whether it is body fluids on various surfaces or touch DNA on clothes, can yield reliable DNA profiles, aiding in the resolution of these cases. This meticulous approach has been instrumental in solving many cold cases, where even small amounts of preserved DNA have led to breakthroughs in long unsolved crimes. In cases like Bryan Kohberger's, where only a trace amount of DNA was found, these challenges are particularly relevant. The DNA was discovered on the button snap of the knife sheath, a non-porous metal surface where DNA degrades faster, while preserved DNA can be analyzed successfully if evidence is not properly handled and stored. Especially on surfaces like metal, the degradation could be accelerated, potentially affecting the reliability of the results. The stability and longevity of DNA on various surfaces can greatly vary, depending on environmental factors and the nature of the material. Generally, touch DNA is more fragile than biological fluids like blood or semen, which contain higher concentrations of DNA. It is more susceptible to environmental degradation, contamination, and removal. For instance, DNA on non-porous surfaces like metal degrades faster than on porous materials like fabric, leather, or paper. Metals can catalyze chemical reactions that break down DNA, and DNA on metal is more exposed to environmental factors such as heat, moisture, and light. In contrast, porous materials can trap DNA within their fibers, protecting it from these environmental factors to some extent. This means that DNA on metal is often more fragile and needs prompt collection and proper storage to ensure accuracy. In summary, while it is possible to obtain accurate information from touch DNA on non-porous surfaces, including metal, months later if it has been stored properly, improper storage conditions can significantly reduce the likelihood of obtaining reliable results. Improperly stored evidence, especially touch DNA, can degrade significantly within days to weeks, underscoring the importance of correct handling and storage practices. such as freezing the evidence to maintain its integrity. These factors highlight the need to consider all contextual factors when analyzing forensic evidence, making the defense's concerns about potential mishandling or improper handling of the knife sheath in the Idaho 4 case more substantial. This raises critical questions about the integrity of the forensic process. How was the DNA handled and stored? Were proper protocols followed to prevent contamination and degradation? Despite these potential issues, forensic analysts were able to successfully extract and determine a statistical match to Kohberger's DNA. However, we must still ask, how and when did this DNA actually get deposited? And could it have been there innocently? While it's unclear whether the DNA found on the knife sheath was the result of direct contact or some form of transfer, forensic analysis typically focuses on trace DNA, which includes touch DNA but could theoretically include secondary transfer as well. Forensic scientists understand that DNA transfer is frequent in everyday settings. People can leave traces of their DNA on items they've briefly touched, and secondary transfer often occurs without notice. However, in forensic contexts, the situation changes. When a single source of DNA, like that found on the knife sheath in the Kohberger case, appears without any contamination or mixtures of other DNA, forensic experts generally presume primary transfer. Secondary transfer in such a critical and isolated location without any mixture is considered rare. Additionally, reliance on sophisticated forensic methods can lead to unforeseen legal dilemmas, such as disputes over the admissibility of evidence, the qualifications of expert witnesses, and the challenges in educating jurors about the technical aspects of forensic testimony. These factors can complicate legal proceedings, creating scenarios where the science that should clarify the truth instead muddies the waters of justice. Reflecting on the remarkable advancements in DNA technology over the years offers insights into how forensic science has transformed. Consider the Juliana Redding case, now over a decade old, where DNA evidence played a fundamental but contentious role. Today, with far more sophisticated technologies at our disposal, we might interpret the same evidence with greater clarity, providing deeper insights into DNA transfer mechanisms. Despite these technological strides, challenges persist, particularly in effectively communicating the complexities of DNA evidence to a jury. As forensic methods evolve, our approaches to presenting and interpreting these findings in legal contexts must also advance. The integration of emerging technologies, such as next-generation sequencing and machine learning, promises to further revolutionize forensic science. These advancements could enhance the precision of DNA analysis, reduce errors, and offer new ways to interpret complex genetic data. While modern DNA testing has become incredibly sensitive, able to detect even the smallest traces of DNA, such as a single skin cell, this heightened sensitivity has made the complexities of DNA interpretation more noticeable. In daily life, secondary transfer can happen frequently and easily. DNA can move from person to object, and even between objects themselves. However, in crime scene investigations, where evidence is meticulously collected and analyzed, single-source DNA without mixture is generally considered to result from primary transfer, unless contamination or secondary transfer is proven. This distinction is critical for understanding how DNA evidence is interpreted in legal contexts. While the occurrence of secondary transfer is still rare in crime scene contexts, it remains a possibility, which adds complexity. The main challenge for forensic experts lies in interpreting its origin, whether the DNA found was directly deposited or transferred indirectly. However, forensic analysis generally favors the conclusion of primary transfer, especially when the DNA is found on crucial evidence directly connected to the crime scene or incident, without any conflicting DNA present. The successful implementation of these technologies, however, will require ongoing education for legal professionals and the public, fostering a deeper understanding of forensic science and its judicial interpretation. The narratives constructed by both the defense and the prosecution can profoundly influence how evidence is perceived and judged. underscoring the critical interplay between science and courtroom rhetoric. As we continue to explore the impact of DNA evidence through the cases of Juliana Redding and the Idaho 4, we confront the compelling intersection of science and ethics in forensic investigations. The presence and location of DNA are undoubtedly crucial. Yet the narratives woven around how that DNA arrived at the scene often dictate the direction of a trial. Beyond the courtroom, emerging technologies in DNA analysis are raising significant ethical questions about privacy and the potential for genetic surveillance. The rapid advancement of forensic technologies not only enhances our ability to solve crimes, but also introduces significant legal and ethical challenges. Investigative genetic genealogy, IgG, and forensic genetic genealogy, FGG, have reshaped criminal investigations. By allowing law enforcement to trace potential suspects through DNA relatives in public and private databases, using methods such as autosomal SNP profiling. While these methods played a crucial role in high-profile cases like the Golden State Killer and potentially in the Idaho 4, they also raise serious privacy concerns. Different policies across DNA testing companies regarding access to genetic data highlight the ongoing struggle to balance crime solving with individual rights to genetic privacy. As we dig deeper into the molecular signatures left at crime scenes, we also enter a complex debate about how to balance the benefits of crime solving with the need to protect individual rights. Current laws struggle to keep pace with advancements, particularly regarding the implications of accessing personal DNA without explicit consent. This discussion extends to the ethical boundaries of predictive policing and the potential for genetic information misuse. How can we create policies that protect privacy while allowing forensic science to advance and aid in solving crimes? Consider the ethical implications of accessing personal DNA records. How do you feel about law enforcement using DNA databases to investigate crimes, including cold cases? Should there be stricter regulations on how this data is accessed and used? Or do you believe law enforcement should have broader access to help solve both ongoing and cold cases? What measures would you suggest to balance the need for public safety with the protection of individual privacy? These questions are critical as we navigate the evolving landscape of forensic science, ensuring that advancements benefit society while protecting individual rights. These advancements prompt us to consider not only the reliability of DNA evidence in securing convictions, but also its broader implications for civil liberties. By exploring these dimensions, we invite a broader dialogue on ensuring that forensic science advances within a framework that respects both justice and human dignity. Society must navigate the fine line between enhancing public safety and safeguarding individual freedoms, challenging us to refine our approaches to interpreting and presenting forensic evidence in ways that uphold the core principles of fairness and accuracy. Ensuring that scientific progress translates into fairer and more accurate judicial outcomes is paramount to maintaining trust in our legal systems. As we discuss these cases, it's important to remember that our focus here is specifically on DNA evidence. It's crucial to acknowledge that our discussions do not encompass the entirety of the evidence considered in legal trials. For example, in the ongoing Idaho 4 case, the jury will be evaluating a broad spectrum of evidence presented by both the prosecution and defense, far beyond just DNA. This includes witness testimonies, physical evidence, digital footprints, and more, all contributing to the overall narrative of the case. It's important for our viewers to recognize that the outcomes of such cases are determined by a comprehensive review of all pertinent evidence, not solely on the forensic details discussed here. This disclaimer is meant to remind viewers of the limited scope of our analysis, intended to shed light on specific forensic aspects without claiming to cover the full breadth of the judicial process. Understanding the multifaceted nature of legal trials is essential for appreciating the complexity of achieving justice. In closing, we reflect on the profound influence of forensic science in our quest for justice. DNA evidence, a vital element in modern investigations, requires meticulous analysis within the broader context of each case. This complexity demands that everyone involved in the legal process, Not just the scientists but also jurors, judges, and attorneys, understands the nuances of forensic evidence handling and interpretation. The tragic cases of Juliana Redding and the Idaho 4, Madison Mogen, Kaylee Goncalves, Xana Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin serve as poignant reminders of young lives brimming with potential, abruptly cut short. As we honor their memory, we extend our heartfelt condolences to their families and loved ones. Their radiant smiles and vibrant spirits remain etched in our memories, reminding us of the fragility of life and the importance of seeking truth with compassion and integrity. As we move forward, let us honor the memories of these individuals by striving for a justice system that not only pursues the truth but also respects the dignity of all those it serves. Though technology can provide incredible insights, it is ultimately our responsibility as humans to handle and interpret this information with care and ethical consideration. Has this discussion shifted your understanding of forensic science? Do these stories influence your views on justice or the reliability of DNA evidence in uncovering the truth? How can we improve the alignment of our forensic tools with the demands of justice? We encourage you to explore these questions further and reflect on the changes needed to better align our forensic tools with the demands of justice. Thank you for joining us on this in-depth journey through the nuances of forensic science. We hope it has enlightened you and sparked a curiosity to learn more about how truth and justice intersect in our modern forensic landscape. Please subscribe and join us on Whim's Wonders as we explore the thought-provoking intersections of science, mystery, and fascinating realities, uncovering stories that push the boundaries of our understanding of the world around us.